9-3 free pick run after cashing in last night with St. Joe's, and 2 more free selections coming your way in just a moment. Going to take a look at the Pac-12 game between Arizona State and Stanford, and then in the ACC, I think a real interesting game between Miami of Florida and Virginia. Hey, listen, guys, congratulations going out to Jeff Benton. You know, the past 2 nights, you got his NBA 40-dime total winners as $5 play of the day releases, and he cashed in with both of those plays, so you made a nice little 80 dimes of profit for a whopping $10. Today, he has a play twice as strong as both of them. His 80-dime college dog shocker of the year. He loves this home pup as it goes today for winning day number 30 out of 47, and you can save $70 and get this play for just $29. Yes, it's part of that program I started a couple of weeks ago that has really gone over well. But again, you know, my philosophy has always been you don't have to spend big money to make big money. So Jeff Benton's 80-dime release is Dog Shocker of the Year, twice as strong as the 40-dime winners you got for just $5 last night and the night prior. You save $70. You get it for just $29 by using coupon code BENTON70. Benton70. Now, the half price play of the day did not win yesterday. Gabriel DuPont was going for 109 winner number 6 out of 7, and he lost with Wisconsin-Milwaukee. But here's the caveat. That was the 4th straight 100-dime release over the past 2 weeks that he had that I brought you for the half price play of the day. He won the first 3. He lost the last 1. You can do the math. You made a hell of a lot of money. That's the bottom line. And you made it all thanks to half price play of the day releases. Today, the half price play of the day, it's going to be from Shawn Michaels, 50-dime winner number 40 out of 62. Over the past 9 months, Shawn has gone 86 wins, 45 losses, 2 pushes, making $10 bettors $27,940. You get his half price play of the day, just like last Monday and Tuesday's half price 50-dime college basketball winners, simply by using coupon code HALF. Brad Wilton is the $5 play of the day, and of course you can save $27 off a single purchase today. You can get all those coupon codes on the homepage. Listen, before I get to the free picks, I wanted to bring something up here. Yesterday, of course, was the 50-year anniversary of the first Ali Liston fight in Miami Beach. My God, I wish I could have gone to that. You know, I've seen it 100 times over on, video. You can find it on YouTube, but my goodness, what a fight. Listen, and I told you in the past, when I was a reporter for about 7 years, I covered just about every major boxing event in the 80s. I mean, boxing has always been my favorite sport. Muhammad Ali has always been my favorite athlete. And I am not one of these guys who idolized and worshipped a bunch of athletes. You will never find me wearing some player's uniform, jersey. You're never going to find, when I was a kid, posters in my room of different athletes or any of that stuff. I just wasn't into it. But I always loved boxing. Always back in the day, before you had to watch everything on pay-per-view, before you had to watch everything on cable. You remember back in the day, we're talking 70s, 80s pretty much. I remember watching all the big fights with my dad on TV. That's what you did. So, of course, you had to listen to Howard Cosell, but I actually enjoyed listening to boxing matches. But, bottom line is, so I've always been a huge boxing fan. So, back to this fight and a little sidebar. In college, I happened to go to Temple University in Philadelphia and happened to get a weekly a sports talk show there in Temple. And, every college radio station, they have talk shows, blah, blah, blah. But ours was really big because this was in an era before there was all the ESPN radio networks. There were no radio sports networks. You were lucky if some of the local stations had sports talk. And the time that we were on, we pretty much had the airwaves to ourselves. Well, we're in Philadelphia. We had a station that was an all-jazz station. Otherwise, it had a great signal. So in the tri-state area, which if you're from the Philadelphia area, which is, Philadelphia and the suburbs, South Jersey, Delaware, you could hear us. But also at that time, cable TV, they used to have the billboard channels. They'd see the little flashing graphic, Women's Auxiliary having their cookie bake sale this week. And underneath, they'd play a music bed from some station. Well, since we were a jazz station, a lot of stations used to carry us. So you would hear us on TV on these stations pretty much across the state of Pennsylvania. So we had a huge reach. Well, being in Philadelphia, we focused on boxing because, again, boxing was big as a sport back then. It's not like today where nobody cares about legitimate boxing, and I don't blame them. I mean, with the MMA and the UFC and the ABC, I don't give a damn about all these Ultimate Fighting Leagues. I've never watched one. I have no interest in it. Maybe you do. If you're younger than me, you definitely do. But bottom line is, boxing back in the day was big. And of course, we're in Philadelphia. Joe Frazier's gym was a few blocks away. Okay, we had Frazier on. We had Randall Cobb in. It was big back then in the studio. Great. I'll tell you that story another day. How Randall Cobb almost got me kicked out of school. But we had all the people, all the big names in boxing, their managers, promoters. So we catered boxing all the time, and our audience loved it. Used to eat it up. I mean, we'd start talking boxing, and the phone lines would light up. So one night, a guy calls on the station, and he poses a question to me that, and remember now, we're talking early 80s. Joe Louis's era wasn't that far behind. Rocky Marciano wasn't that far behind. We were just coming off the decade where we had one super fight after another with Norton and Foreman and Ali and Frazier and, all the great ones. And Larry Holmes was just coming up, and he was in nearby Easton, Pennsylvania. So a guy calls up and he says, greatest heavyweight champion of all time, how would you classify the fights? Would you pit Ali against Marciano? Easy win. Would you pit Ali against Joe Louis? And I broke it down and I said, well, Ali against Joe Louis would be an interesting fight. But the problem is that's not the fight you wanted to see. You wanted to see Cassius Clay against Joe Louis. And that gets back to the fight last night, Cassius Clay and Sonny Liston, or the 50-year anniversary of that fight. Remember, there were two different fighters. There was Cassius Clay, who was young, fast, had that incredible lightning speed with his hands, great jab, the elusiveness to get out of the way of punches, and the ability to dance all night in the ring. And also in that era, you had heavyweights that weren't heavyweights like today. You didn't have 260-pound heavyweights. So his punch carried some pop. But then you had the Vietnam War protest. You had the draft protest. You had the 3.5-year exile from the ring. What a strange time it was in America back then, right? And the fighter that emerged not only changed his name, but he was no longer the same fighter. It had nothing to do with his conversion, his religious beliefs, the name change. It was the fact that age had taken its toll. And also the hiatus from the ring had taken its toll. You had a fighter whose hands weren't quite as solid, a little more brittle. You had a guy who didn't quite move as fast. Oh, yeah, he shuffled and he danced for, let's say 15-second spurts here and then throughout the rounds. But you didn't have Cassius Clay anymore. You had Muhammad Ali. So I broke it down to the guy and I said, hey, Joe Louis against Cassius Clay, no problem. Cassius Clay would stay outside. He'd box. He'd rack up points. He'd win the fight. Muhammad Ali against Joe Louis, interesting, different fight. I said, I think that Ali would have to kind of resort to the tactics that he had in the Rumble in the Jungle against George Foreman, the rope-a-dope, etc. The guy disagreed with me. But that's what makes sports talk great. But I thought I was right. A couple callers later, guy calls in and says, Al, you were absolutely right. It was Zach Clayton. Now, those of you that don't follow boxing probably don't realize, Zach Clayton was the man. The third man in the ring, in the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire, Africa. I mean, he was the man. He was the referee. This was a guy who was from Philadelphia. I mean, one of the great refs of all time. I mean, he was there in Zaire. I mean, this was the first black man to ever be a referee of a major title fight. And he told me that my breakdown, my analysis was pretty much right on target. And I got to tell you something, guys. Of all the things I've ever done, radio, TV, anything in the media, as a reporter, that was the greatest compliment, the greatest wow that I ever got in my life, because that man was there. But you go back and do yourself a favor. If you don't remember the fight, if you weren't around for that fight, look it up on YouTube. Look up that one. Look up the second one. Look for the Phantom Punch. You'll find the punch. It was there. Did Liston throw it? What's the mob involved? Hey, we're never going to know. It's like, was there a second shooter on the grassy knoll in Dallas in that November day in '63? You're never going to know. It's always going to be open for great debate. But just hard to believe 50 years have gone by. Anyway, guys, with that being said, let's get to the free selections. As I always told you, if I had to talk about gambling every day, I'd go crazy doing these video reports. Let's take a look at the late game between Arizona State and Stanford. Stanford has now won 3 straight, 5 out of 6 after, or 6 out of 7 after beating UCLA and Palo Alto over the weekend. The home team, however, is on a 5-1 ATS run in the series, but that's kind of a meaningless stat. It's one of those stats that gamblers and handicappers throw out that may sound important, but in reality, when you're looking at a game where the line is 1.5, does it really matter that the home team has covered 5 of the last 6? No, what matters tonight is that the home team, in this case Arizona State, has won 6 straight games at the Wells Fargo Arena, I think it's called, in Tempe. They've won 6 straight games at home since losing their Pac-12 opener at home to Washington. And their last home game was that little double overtime upset of Arizona as a 5-point home dog. Problem is, they followed up that big win by going on the road and getting just crushed. First at Colorado by 9, and then to Utah, where they lost by 23 points. So they are probably in the big dance, but a win tonight would certainly solidify and punch their ticket. And I think Stanford's in a difficult spot. They're coming off the big revenge-fueled win at home against UCLA. They're on the road against Arizona State team coming off 2 straight losses with a 6-game home winning streak. I think this is a good place to take the Sun Devils to avenge a 6-point loss they suffered at Stanford in the first meeting. So I like Arizona State minus the 1.5 here. Now, the other game is Virginia minus 10 at home against Miami of Florida. Listen, the Cavaliers have just been dynamite. What can you say about this team? They have won 14 out of 15 since that 35-point home blowout loss at Tennessee back on December 30th. And the only loss in that 15-game stretch came by 4 points at Duke. And as you know, they are the number 1 team in scoring defense in the country, giving up just like 55.3 points a game. But Miami, Florida is also a very stingy defensive team as well. And the Hurricanes have to, because after losing all 5 starters from last year and like 95% of their scoring offense, this team can't hit the broadside of the barn sometimes. I mean, they're averaging just about 62 points a game, hitting only 41% of their shots this season. They're 3-3 on the road, though, in ACC play. Remember, they won outright as a 10-point dog at North Carolina. They've won at Florida State. Their 3 losses have come against Syracuse, Maryland, and Virginia Tech on the road in ACC play, and those 3 losses by a combined 15 points. Remember when they opened Syracuse's ACC season at the Carrier Dome and just, flummoxed the Orangemen defensively in that game? The final was 49-44. I can see tonight's game being somewhere in the mid to high 50s. Both teams. I think Virginia's going to get caught looking ahead to the big game against Syracuse at home on Saturday. Let's face it, the Orangemen, because of the losses to Boston College and Duke, are now in 2nd place in the Big East, or the ACC. Who are they behind? Virginia. The Cavaliers got to be looking ahead. They're going to win this game. No ifs, ands, or buts here. But forget about that 12-3 ATS run they're on. I think you grab the 10 points and you take Miami to cover the spread. That'll do it, guys. Best of luck to you again. Arizona State at home. Miami, Florida on the road, 9-3 free pick run, and that'll do it for Wednesday.